Mr. O'Hurley, I was gathering information about you, and I got this impression that you have so many roles, both civic and church-related, and you also present yourself as mediator. Which mediator mission would you describe as most important, significant to you?
Mediation is an interesting discipline of law. I tell people if they want to argue facts, go to court. I'm not smart enough to be a judge. Let someone decide. But if you have an interest in resolving conflict, mediation provides an avenue to do it, which also has the possibility of preserving the relationship after the dispute. So whether it's a commercial dispute or an international dispute or a family dispute, I think that mediation, finding the problem, finding new opportunities to solve it, is some of the most important work I do, and I'm always glad to be able to be of help.
Yeah, I heard you have negotiated extensively in the Middle East. You have practiced the mediation there. How have the circumstances there changed? Why is it so difficult to get to any agreement today?
I think people sometimes allow history to color their judgment. Because we isolate ourselves, whether it's in Northern Ireland and Ireland, where I'm from, we live separately from the British, it's harder for us to understand them. On the island of Cyprus, between the Turks and the primarily Greek culture. In the Middle East, where Christians have lived separately from Islam, they share common problems, common obstacles to peace, prosperity, getting an education for their children, having stability, and yet because they no longer have reference of each other, they don't understand each other, it makes it more difficult for them to reach agreements because they don't understand the other culturally, linguistically, and they allow history to enter into it and color their opinion, even though that history may no longer play a role today. So in the Middle East, a lot of times, our work in conflict resolution begins with building relationships. The actual negotiation might be months down the line. But if we want to have stability and durability, something that lasts, it requires a relationship.
Can you give us some example from your work in the Middle East, a lesson that you have learned on the ground?
A lot of people today make reference of Islamic persecution in Europe, and it happens. But a lot of people fail to remember that in Palestine, in Gaza, in the West Bank, Christians face the same persecution from the Israeli government and Jewish settlers that are Zionistic. Church property is confiscated. Nuns and priests are beaten on the streets of Jerusalem. And why this may not be the official policy of the Israeli government, it happens too often. So when we see Muslims and Christians suffering the same issues, but arguing them in different forums and different ways, it is an impediment to solving the problem. So getting them together to understand each other, that they share the same issues on property rights, on employment, on freedom of movement, this becomes critical work. And it's critical work for justice and peace, not because they're Muslims or Christians, but because all people deserve human dignity and the same rights under their governments.
I know that you personally attended the first Russian-Ukrainian negotiations in 2022. What did you witness there, and how do you view the prospects of future negotiations?
I was at the Antalya Diplomacy Forum when the Foreign Minister of Ukraine, Kuleba, and Mr. Lavrov of Russia were to meet. There were great prospects for peace. But then the mass graves in Bucha were discovered. And after this horrendous murder of civilians, executed gangland or military style with bullets in the back of their heads, the chance for peace evaporated. But I commend the Turkish government for constructing the Antalya Diplomacy Forum, bringing voices which were previously not heard as equals, whether they're from the Balkans or the Middle East or the Levant or Asia or Africa, to prominence, the way they're done in Berlin or other conferences for diplomacy around the world. Those will provide in time a forum and a catalyst for a better world. So I think the important thing we need to remember is where peace was once possible, we need to say to ourselves, can we let this historic past, no matter how evil, keep us from achieving a peace which provides an opportunity for prosperity? And I know people say I'm anti-Russian. I'm not. But I am for the reconciliation of people, and reconciliation and justice go hand in hand. So any peace agreement with Russia and Ukraine, there has to be justice involved. So I think there's an opportunity, and I think we should continue to work on it.
You're presenting your book. It's on the Russian Church. You are co-author with your wife, who is Ukrainian. Do you believe that the Orthodox faith, which is shared by both sides, Ukrainians and Russians, could somehow help to overcome this bloody war?
I think you've asked probably the most insightful question today about the role of orthodoxy in peace and stability. The Orthodox faith, and I am an Orthodox Christian, the faith that I know calls for unity. Our councils have always been about us having agreement, passing on the faith as it was taught to us by the church fathers and mothers. I don't see that in Russia anymore. What I see is a church who declares a holy war. This is a jihadist idea foreign to Orthodox Christianity. When I see that the Patriarch of Moscow, Kirill, says that Russian soldiers who die fighting in Ukraine are to be considered martyrs to the faith, I don't understand that orthodoxy, because the martyrs to the faith that I was raised with renounced violence for love, the love that Jesus taught. So I would agree that we both call ourselves Orthodox. But when Russia excommunicated itself from the ecumenical patriarchate and the rest of Orthodoxy over the political issue of the Ruski Mir, that Russia must be in control, I ceased to see the Russian Orthodox Church as authentically Orthodox, but rather a servant of the Russian state. So can Orthodoxy play a role? Absolutely. But I would ask, are we really negotiating with other Orthodox Christians? Because the Orthodox that the Russian Church is promoting today is not an Orthodoxy that I neither know nor understand. And I'm willing to learn. This is why we did our research. This is why we published it. But I still don't see their reasoning, and I think it's bad for humanity.
You were Catholic once, you said you're Orthodox now.
Of course. Irish, I couldn't be anything but Catholic. I became Orthodox because I had a chaplain in the military who was Orthodox. I found a beauty in it, a contentment. And of course, with my wife, who's part Russian and part Ukrainian, being Orthodoxy provided us and our family a place to worship.
Do you believe that the religion, the subject religion, should be taught in schools? We have such debate in Bulgaria.
I do, but I believe it's how it's taught which is important. The book researches Russia's role, the Russian Orthodox Church's role in their educational curricula. The way they teach the church, history, ethics, values, and we hear a lot about Russia as a defender of traditional values. worries me. Is it a traditional value that a human being should be limited from access to knowledge? I don't think so. So when we take books off bookshelves, when we limit access to the internet, this is control. This is not the edification or the theosis, our transformation to be more godlike, which is what Christ calls us to. When I see that when you fall out of favor with the Russian state, you fall out of a window to your death, I ask myself, what good has that religious curriculum been? But I will not say that teaching religion in schools is bad, but I would say it's what we teach and how we teach it. What is its goal? This is the real issue. So I applaud Bulgaria on continuing this dialogue, this expression from successive parliaments that they're interested. I applaud the Patriarch, Danil, his Beatitudes interest in religious education is wonderful. But I remain cautious what we teach about religion so that we don't end up like Donald Trump's America, where religion is a political tool as opposed to something to help us understand ourselves as people and as Christians.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Hurley.
Thank you for having me.